I, I can't believe it. Is this really happening?
Dun dun
Is
dun.
this really season 9, episode 36, number 384
Mm-hmm.
on June the 20th? But it was supposed to happen on the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, dude, I was here, I was waiting, I was ready. And like I told you, a little bit of time passed, and I'm like, Clough's not coming. I don't think I don't think Clough knows this is happening. You were not in our realm at that time of day. you were
And even
you,
that was a reschedule, right? Because what was happening on the Saturday? Something was happening on the
Oh
Saturday.
shoot. So we were supposed to go last 14th, not 13th. We were supposed to do it Sun. Oh my God. That so this was
Something was happening on the Saturday.
oh, you had to go and help your wife set up for a show in the
That's
morning.
it.
Yeah,
That's right. She had, yep, we had
you had something.
an early call time for the band that she's in. Yeah,
So
that's
the
right.
13th early call time, we this wasn't gonna happen. 14th was our reschedule.
But I
But
went to the concert.
I texted you and said, yo, whatever. And then I came to the computer and I sat here just like I'm sitting here now. I just sat here and a little bit of time passed. I'm like, this isn't happening. And um, I just figured, obviously, you didn't respond to my text and you didn't end up here. So I was like, well, I just hope everything's okay. But you were in another realm. You were riding horses in fields or something. I don't know how you dream or what you dream of,
Not often horseback riding, but yeah.
but it's a good visual.
I
Now
get,
I see
yeah,
you
no, that
riding
worked out
horses.
really. You freestyled on that one really well. That was awesome.
Riding horses.
There we go.
Good morning to Gary. Good morning,
Mm.
Gary. So
Morning, Gary.
I got a great story that involves Gary. So
Here we go.
I saw Gary. Gary and I had breakfast last weekend. It was glorious to actually sit and talk to Gary. Um, and yeah, thanks for breakfast, Gary. That was good. Um, Gary had told me, maybe not when we were eating breakfast, maybe weeks ago. I was supposed to see Gary. I did see Gary. Anyway, I can't remember anymore um, because of Gary's lifestyle and his professional work. I don't get to see Gary anymore. I'm lucky if
Hmm.
I get to see Gary. There's a little dig at what he does for a living. But anyway, um, Gary told me that he had told a student that goes to my school to say hello to me, or he gave her a message to give to me. And then I saw Gary told me about the message. I never got the message. Yesterday, I'm in the hallway after exams and I'm just chatting with a teacher. And then another teacher rolls up and we're chatting. And he says to me, hey, I have a message for you from Mr. Kraling. I'm like, oh, what's the message? And he goes, something about keeping my nose clean, staying out of trouble. I'm like, oh my God, so you're the messenger? He goes, no, a student in my class was to deliver this. A student in my class said to me, I have a message for Mr. Chidiak. And he's like, okay, I'll tell Mr. Chidiak. But he never saw me until yesterday. And I was like, holy cow. It took like, I don't know, a month, maybe a month and a half for this message to get to me. So there's the Gary story. But I was like, you know Gary? And he's like, well, I've heard of Gary. I'm like, you don't know Gary? Then how did the message get to you? It's just really, yeah, whatever. But it was just funny that this telephone game finally worked. And now that I say it the way I do, it reminds me of talking on the phone to the Middle East. Because I
Hmm.
remember when I was younger, when we were going to make a call to the Middle East or the Middle East was making a call to us, I swear to you, it like in my mind, I imagined 8,000 operators between Lebanon and Canada plugging in the wires and unplugging and everything just so my dad could talk to his sister or his brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
it felt the same way. I bet you now it'd probably be a joke to call Lebanon. Like I could do it instantly. Well, I mean, aside from their infrastructure problems over there because of the fighting, but
Right.
modern technology is like I'm sure I could talk to Lebanon no problem today, as opposed to 20 years ago. Anyway, so there's the Gary story, but more importantly, I got to see Gary live and in person, and it was nice. It was good. And
Mhm.
Rochelle, she's not here right now, as far as I can tell, but she sent me a couple of Rochelle's got some rabbits living in her backyard, so she's taken some photos of the rabbits hanging out, and she sends them to me because I'm probably the only person on this planet Earth that will appreciate those photos of the rabbits.
Yeah, we got them there too. They're eating all the clover because I'm more of a clover guy than a lawn guy.
You're a clover
But I
guy.
don't do much to actually promote the clover other than just leave it alone. You
Which
go
is
clover.
That's fair. Yeah, you go
Mhm.
clover. That's fair. If I had a choice, if somebody said you can't have a nice lawn, you can pick anything else to have in your lawn, I'd pick clover for sure. Um, I was going to say something about that before you drop the clover, the rabbits.
Rabbits.
Oh yeah. So last winter, not this winter, that just happened. The one before, um, we got smacked with a ton of snow. The snow was so high that the rabbits were eating one of the bushes out front in front of my house. And so when the snow would melt a little bit, you would see what they ate, what they gnawed at. And I remember the family, like my kids and my wife, they looked over at me. They're like, "Oh, Dad's gonna be pissed. The rabbits are eating this and that, and they're wrecking this and that." When they told me, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." They're like, "What? You're not mad?" I'm like, "No, the rabbits need to eat." And you're just all looking at each other like, this guy's broken. Like he goes from one winter, making sure everything remains pristine, to the next winter where the rabbits are literally. I would look out the window at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're literally gathered around this bush because the snow was so high. It just that was their path up to it, right? And I look out there. There's like four or five just eating. I got a big smile on my face, thinking, "There's Pretzel's cousins eating the bush," and I don't care. I don't care if it's the rabbits. I don't care. Other things, I don't think I want them in my yard, but I don't have much control over that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. We got everything there: raccoons, rabbits, skunks,
Oh, I hate the skunks. I've seen skunks.
foxes.
You got
We even
fox.
had a hawk one time. Zip, like our backyard's pretty closed in, and somehow we had a hawk zoom in, grab a little red squirrel off of our deck, and then sit on the fence eating it. That was a pretty ninja move. Like there's very little clearance for it to come in, but for it to be able to do that off the get that close to the house to grab it off the deck and then make it back to the fence and have a lunch, like that was pretty intense.
I love that. That's cool.
Animal
That's
world,
really
baby.
cool. So, can we talk work for a minute?
Yeah, I got a couple of things.
Okay. So, I finished. I don't have any more exams to proctor.
Hmm.
I'm all done. Um, which feels friggin' fantastic. It feels I'm you know, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and they came into the room. So after the exam period was officially over, so it was yesterday our exams were from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., but I still had a student in the room on a computer at around 10:40 a.m. and that was the only student left, and they get extra time, which is fine. And it's kind of a neat story. They're on my caseload and they're graduating. So, you know, people were saying to me, "Do you need to go take a break? Like, do you need to use the bathroom? I'll watch her a while." And I'm like, "No, no, I'm good. I'm good." And they're kind of looking at me like they're looking at their watch. They're looking at me and they're like, "Aren't you closing up?" I'm like, "No, I have a student working and they're entitled to this time. I want to make sure that they get their time." And they're like, "But you're okay to stay?" And I said, "At this moment with this student, yeah, I'm okay. Like, I'm not bothered or anything." So the teacher says to me, he goes, "You look like you've been through the ringer." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I kind of feel that way. So let me tell you why, right? I just had two exam periods of supervising exams of kids I don't know. Like, I do know them, but I think it's different. And maybe you correct me if I'm wrong. And Gary, you jump in too if you want. Because I don't have the same 25 kids every day, I think I would feel less stress because I would know them better and I would know how they operate and this and that. So when I looked at the exam sign-in sheet for my times to proctor, I recognized a lot of the names, and it made it easier for me to place them in the room because they usually sit in a particular spot in the room when they come in to write tests or to complete activities or to use a computer. So my brain went to, okay, put them where they normally go. Don't mess with that if you don't have to, because that's where they always are. But then there was like a third, maybe a third both days of kids that I rarely have seen, don't really know. And I don't know how they're going to respond to the way I'm going to operate because we don't really have relationship. So with relationship, I can say certain things, they can say certain things to me, and there's a buffer, which is awesome because I milked some of that in the middle of all this and the stress of making sure kids had what they had. And there were some issues that would pop up here and there that were totally out of my control, but it was like, well, let's figure this out. You don't have what you need, let's figure it out. But there was, I think what was like weighing heavy on me were that third each day of the kids that I didn't really have relationship with. So how are they going to deal with walking into my room and following my instructions? Because I don't know how they do things in their classroom with their teacher. So I was telling this to the teacher. I said to him that was kind of weighing on me, even though I was putting it aside, it was still there because it's a stressful time. And I think I've told you several times in the last couple of weeks, this is the fourth time I've done this now. And this fourth time has been the worst of all four in terms of students being disrespectful, um, students being like no fuse, like just losing their shit instantly for whatever reason over the last 2 weeks, and treating me in a way that I've not been treated before. So that's a learning experience, and it's been a little bit different. So this teacher, I'm explaining this to this teacher, and I'm saying to him, like, I don't think I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that this is kind of what was on my plate, and I was working through it, and I'm out of gas. I'm done. I'm done. I just feel tired of accommodating certain things that I consider nonsense, but nevertheless, it's in front of you. You got to deal with it, right? Or situations where I'm working with a kid to build the best possible plan, but then the kid, for whatever reason, decides that that plan's not going to work for me anymore. So they go above me. And then the people above me are trying to direct me on what to do with this kid. And then I started pushing back saying, stop directing me. How about you direct it? Because this has happened several times now. You give it to me, which is great. I do something with it, but then it lands in your lap again because of dissatisfaction. But there was no dissatisfaction at the time that it was created. It came after. So when you give it to me, it's going to land in your lap again because I'm telling you, it's like the Matrix. I see the numbers. Gary doesn't want to do anything that I put together with Gary. He's just playing the game. And an hour later, you're going to get an email saying, I don't want to do anything that Chidiak and I just figured out. This is what I want. And you're the only one that can give it to me. And then that person says, I can't give you that, but Chidiak will help you through this because I'm not going to give you 45 minutes to figure this out. I got other things I got to do. So anyway, I just explaining this circular thing that I'm just tired. Like I've had enough. And what I mean by that is it's ground me down. And it's like, does nobody else see the pattern here? Why are we engaging in this again? We obviously have to do something different. And then nothing happens. It just stays the same. So this teacher looked at me and said, dude, you look spent. I'm like, I am spent. So I'm hoping that this week I'm not in a room supervising. I'm doing other things. I'm finishing my e-learn. I've got some supervision. I got to figure things out on how to close up and then talk to guidance on how maybe I can start up there. So anyway, I'm feeling really good right now in terms of I feel like my stuff is settling. There's still 2 more exam days. There's credit rescue. I don't know what that's going to mean stuff for my kids, but that's kind of where I'm at. I wanted to put that out into the universe. And I know you've heard some of it already, but you've heard the version I'm not going to share here, but that's the right version. Um, and I get it. Everybody's feeling maybe a little bit of a burn, but I just feel like I really appreciate when kids tell me, no, I don't want to do that. That's not going to work for me. And then I say to them, okay, so tell me what you're thinking and let's see if we can meet in the middle because I don't get to just make decisions carte blanche. I'm part of a process and I'm part of a group of people and I want the student to be successful, but the student has to do certain things for other people who require certain things to be done that are out of my control or interest or purpose. Gary says, I got to assist during period 1 exams in SST. It was nice working with some of the students I helped in my past role. That's awesome. I think that's fantastic. And for someone like Gary, that'll fill his cup, which is great because we all need our cups filled a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening, Clough and Gary and whoever else is here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I won't be around for this, but the future listeners, viewers, I always wonder what version of education will be in effect. I don't always wonder this. That's a dumb way to start this. I have wondered when people somewhere down the road, through whatever method they have at their digital disposal, find our content and hear us talking about school, be the equivalent of digital archaeology, eh? And I wonder first and foremost what version of school will be in effect. I feel like this version that we're in is constantly on the brink of massive change, but it never really gets to massive change. And the one change in particular that I still don't understand why it hasn't changed, really. I don't, mostly because it's like a house of cards setup that so many of the what seem to be foundational elements have been shifted, yet the system hasn't shifted. It's quite mind-boggling. Like a Jenga stack with like one little log at the bottom, and it just doesn't tumble over. And part of the thing that I'm always fascinated by is how we don't have a balanced school year. Like that summer has become non-existent. I really don't understand how it hangs on. I don't. And I get all the permutations, but I still don't understand why we don't have a all year round school system. That's just more of a share. But it leads into my second thing that I'm still always fascinated by. And it is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it could also be relieved if we re-examined this idea that somehow we should be finishing school in June. I'm still mind blown by individuals that walk around this time of year and say things like, I'm so done. I find I have to just kind of walk away from the conversations, and I start to feel a little bit like a weirdo. The number of people that I have encountered in the last week that, on one hand, have suddenly become entirely broken by their job. They're just so done. I'm so done. They have no energy or time left to help anyone because it's the end of the school year and there's nothing left in the can. and have kind of already like checked out, not available, not willing to discuss, just looking to kind of put things on the bench for September. All of these are realities. This is stuff that I've observed ever since I left hospitality. There was somebody, I think it was a parent. Man, you must be looking forward to summer. And I said, not really. Like I don't have that. I don't have a like a countdown in my head. But I said that to them and they gave me like a yeah, right face. But I was being completely honest. I don't. I get it that in a week I'll have more time for me and I'll have to contribute less time to work. But do I feel like I'm just crawling to the finish line? No, I don't. And I'm starting to like, I mean, at one point, I was really self-righteous about this coming in my first few years of teaching because I had just come out of the restaurants. I'm like, how dare you, teacher, complain about that? Like you went right from you basically have had summers off since you started JK because you went and then you did university, then you came and you started teaching right away. So talk about a habit that looks like it's eating you alive, because this idea that you have to do a little bit more at the tail end of the year and or that somehow you could be asked a question in the first week of July, but no, you've punched out. It's still fascinating to me. And it feels a little culty. That's what I'm starting to feel. It feels a little culty because the justifiers I just don't get. The job really is no different in June than it is in May. It's no different in May than it is in April. Sure, we have different deliverables, but we're still doing the same work. To mark an exam is not that much different than marking a unit summative. You talk to any English teacher, they're marking essays at midterm and they're marking essays for the exam. You talk to a science teacher, well, they're doing labs there and they're doing, lab exams at the end. So then I guess, like, what is it? And I think it really is just the drinking the Kool-Aid mindset. People get triggered by each other. Like, I'm so tired. Yeah, I'm so tired. It becomes like, what's that called? Trauma core. Like people trying to, or sort of not trauma, like fatigue core. People are each trying to outdo each other with how tired they are. I'm not disputing that they're tired. You're welcome to be tired. Be tired. But really, are you any more tired in June than you were in December? Than you were in September? I don't know. And the last thing I'll bait the hook with, and you can jump on any one of these three ideas. And it has to do with me observing, you've talked about your room 208, I've talked about my room 312 or 312. And you and I are doing very similar work in these two different spaces. And there are some things that I've started to observe, and it has a little bit to do with some of the commentary I've heard in the school, but it also has to do with how I observe this room is being run. And I'm starting to kind of question. The it's not legitimacy, but maybe it's technical legitimacy of how resource rooms are run. I'm probably not the first one to ask this. I won't be the last one to ask this. But I am starting to have ideas about what does accountability to the kid supporting the IP and to the school look like? Because I see high accountability to kid and not as much high accountability to school, to sort of our colleagues that are sending kids down that are expecting a certain amount of security and support and integrity in the way that we're helping the kids. Of course, we do it in the way that we know best according to the IP and how we know the kid. But again, I'm starting to look at, if kids are coming down for tests, what would be a reasonable, secure way for them to have to do it and to follow the rules of the classroom while they're in the room of this resource room. There are some kids that escape classroom just because they can, and they do it under the auspices of their IEP. And this is actually a topic I've outside. I mean, you and I dig into these things, but it's not something that it's a bit of an itchy sweater conversation, because in that exact same conversation, we have to admit that there are kids that cheat as a as a tool within their sort of IEP toolkit. Like they will sort of they understand the system enough that they will leave their classroom knowing that they don't have the same pressures that are being put upon them in the classroom. And then when they come out, it's a little bit like the triangulation where you tell your kid goes to the one parent says, hey, can I go to the movies on Friday? The one parent says no. So right away they kind of wait their time, and then they ask the other parent, hey, I was kind of thinking. So they change their tactic depending on what they were, the approval or disapproval they were given from the other parent. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in this weird conversation where the parents talk about it. They're like, how did that happen? Like, well, the kid isolated us from each other. So I think that's one of the places in September that I'm going to start to lean a little bit more into, is starting to take into account a little bit at a more deeper level the needs of the teacher when they are sort of saying, okay, the kid's going to come down there. I get the IEP. Like if I assess that the teacher actually does understand the IEP to at least an effective level as I do, I think I have to understand it more deeply. But if their interpretation of the IEP relative to the kid's skill set, relative to the actual task, seems to be in alignment, then I think I have to encourage our team to up our game and be more secure. Like, okay, thank you. Now go back to class. Like all that kind of stuff. So the actual resource room doesn't become a hangout spot. The second thing to that is also not reteaching the stuff that the teacher has taught them. I've encountered so many students that come down there and they, for whatever reason, they just don't have a clue. So I'm literally reteaching a lesson in an area of content that I have no specialty in, but I'm actually reteaching in the resource room. And that sort of smacks at a larger problem, which it could be that the kid automatically just thinks to themselves that this is their new classroom, their resource room, or there actually are really real problems in the pedagogy of the teacher that's sort of working with them. But we, as spec ed teachers, I think we need to start admitting, and I learned this when I was doing alt ed, admitting that we can't teach all content areas. And it would do us well, and when I say us, it's the royal us, but from my experience at my school, it would do us well to say that to the kid and say, you need to go back to class, or you need to go to math help on Thursdays, and not to just keep the kid there and think like we can do it. I see a lot of my colleagues right now taking on curriculum areas that they don't really understand. And if the kid doesn't have some understanding of the fundamentals, I don't think it's our space to reteach those fundamentals. They need to be back in the classroom. Can we help augment, adjust, interpret, align, scaffold, expand? Sure, if we're comfortable doing it. But if we truly are learning strategists doesn't include content mastery. That's a separate pillar. So yeah, that was my third thing.
Gary said he loves that question reflection about how we navigate the balance.
I think that is Gary. I would be that language, the language of how we navigate it. I will go full on classroom teacher and say we should not be navigating it, because navigation suggests that as spec ed teachers, we are pursuing balance. And if we are pursuing balance, then we accept accountability for another teacher's content area. And I think that's where I'm kind of putting up the wall, that I'm kind of done with that. Because it's incredibly frustrating to sort of seek balance. But I get the spirit of what you're saying. I get the technical side as well, what you're saying, Gary. I also get the spirit side of it. But I have found myself saying this past semester, I'm not going to help you with this. You need to go back to class. You need to show me the notes. You have no notes. You have to arrive here with something that I can help you develop, not something that I'm going to reteach. If we find ourselves in this space where we are the alternative classroom, not the alternative space, if we take ourselves into that alternative classroom, then we are taking on the responsibility of teaching kids, I think, in a not I don't see that as fiduciary responsibility. I don't see that as reasonable. I think the harder spot, and this probably doesn't happen quite as often, but I'm going to think maybe Gary went this route, is thinking of yourself as an in-house consultant where you go and you have a very adult conversation with the teacher, says, look, we need to have a discussion as to just kind of like, let's kind of spitball here. Why is the student constantly leaving your classroom? What is the dynamic here? I'm not here to judge, I'm here to understand. But the kid keeps coming down here and expecting me to reteach the math. What's happening here? Now, maybe this is something more, I don't know, colleague to colleague. Maybe we become a little too accusey. Maybe this is something that administrators need to jump into and kind of analyze that. Because God knows, and when I was in Access doing the suspension and expulsion, I had kids coming to me from all around the school board. And I will tell you, the quality of work for the exact same course, exact same code, it was wide. It was wide. So individual, like I would look at, like I'd be thinking to myself, if there was anything besides the fact that this kid's relationship with the school is now broken and they have to come to the suspension school away from their home school, I would look at some of the curriculum that I'd be getting for kids to work on. I'm like, and this ain't helping. Like this is not well designed. This is not well designed. This doesn't it doesn't seem to support anything relational. And not to say that just because a kid punches another kid in the face in the hallway, that somehow a really well designed English essay would have kept them at school. But it's in there. It's in there if that's part of their school experience. I'm not holding anyone specifically accountable, but I am pointing out that I've had firsthand experience in lesson resources that I'm like, I don't know if any kid, this is teaching to the teacher specialist. This is teaching in a way that works for the teacher, but I don't know how a kid, let alone of a certain exceptionality, would understand it. But just a regular kid, I don't get your design here. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, I don't want to be reteaching that stuff anymore. And I've noticed that some of the students that are kind of like the grade 9s, we have an opportunity to reset that, because whatever their version of resource was in elementary, we have an opportunity to set the bar as to this is what it looks like in high school. However, as they get to grade 10, 11, and 12, if they get used to coming down to a 208 or 312 to be retaught, that's their primary teaching space. You look around the classroom and you got textbooks from every single department up in there. If it is an alternative classroom, then that becomes very, very tricky. Also, because if they get used to coming down there, you don't always have curricular specialists in there. Like nobody goes to university to become a spec ed teacher. You can, there are things you can take, but it's a separate qual, right? You tend to, as a teacher, you go because you want to teach English, you want to teach art. So you have some fundamental understanding of what you need to teach. I am not trained to teach math, but I have taught myself to teach math. Am I as good as the math department? No, I am not. I do often find myself in a position, though, where I have to kind of like defend myself as a learning strategist. And the best route is to say, I'm supporting this kid teaching the math, as opposed to I'm supporting their learning strategies. Hands down, if a kid arrives in your class, in 208 or 312, and they're looking for help in math, English, and they have no resources with them, they should be sent back to the classroom. They don't get to sit in there and kind of say, I'm just going to work through it here. I think that what I'm looking for, and I'll never get the agreement to this, is a fundamental baseline of accountability for the kids when they show up. And in doing so, we can also kind of reinforce our relationship with the departments that may or may not be sending them, but are like, they were just in class. I think we rebuild this type of relationship of trust that the kids aren't just coming down to the spec ed room to escape class. And in doing so, lose track of the course, right? You can only be working out of 208 or 312 for so long before the physics become completely off and you lose connection with that classroom. And then it becomes so much easier for a kid, an underdeveloped brain, to say, well, the teacher doesn't like me. I just don't like that. I don't like being in the classroom. And then we got nothing. I guess we could say we'll go talk to admin or guidance. Some departments will say, okay, just have a seat. You just work on whatever you need to work on. And then, the kid gets a bye. Rigor in spec ed spaces. And my feelings of I can't reteach it right now. I can't. I should put that I won't, but I don't know. I can't is probably better right now. My God, that's a TED Talk making up for missing last week, bro. Sorry. Not sorry.
No, I got you. I get it. And what you're talking about, I can relate to. It. And it seems to me Murphy's Law is that when these kids walk into 208 and they're like, I'm here to do math, I'm like, okay, where are your notes? I don't have any notes. Anybody who knows me now at the school knows I'm not a math guy. And I've learned over the years about me and math. I'm not a math guy, meaning it's not a subject that has come naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, but I've also learned that I'm not using that as a crutch. So for example, students will come in and I'm like, okay, well, where are your notes? Like, I see the work, but do you have any examples? They're like, no. And it's always no. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is a problem in and of itself. The fact that you don't have any notes, that's a problem. How do you expect to learn and practice? So they kind of get an earful from me. Then I say to them, what would you like me to do? Kind of like, I know you're here to get support, but you don't have anything to help me support you. And I can go try to find it, but that's going to take time. And I'm not apologetic about that anymore. I don't know what you're learning. This is not content that I'm familiar with. I'm happy to help you, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Number one. Number two, you're going to have to deal with the phone ringing every 5 minutes and new kids coming to the door that I need to figure out what they need and how to accommodate them. So in the middle of that circus, I'm going to try to work with you. And with some kids, it's great because they're like, I completely understand. Thank you for taking the time to try to support me. And other kids are like, this sucks, man. You're not helping me. I don't know if you've noticed that I'm running the room. Like, and then I just laugh because it's like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm not a Superman. I'm not going to pretend to be one. So no notes. And what's the solution I found for that? I've talked to some of the friendlier math teachers that like I get along with, and they provided me with course notes that they have, that they use, day to day as they're working through different concepts with kids. So that's great because I can refer to that quickly and get like a quick, dirty understanding of a concept to try to help a student. So when I say I'm not a math guy, I'm not saying it like, don't send me any math students. It's like, and I'm proud of myself because I now understand certain math concepts because I've dealt with them in a rote manner. So when a student says to me, I don't know how to solve this problem, I'm like, I do. And I'll show you like the process of how to solve this type of problem, but I can't explain the foundations of it, right? Like I didn't study math. So I can show you how to do this, but I can tell you right now, and I always laugh when somebody shows me a math problem because I can see the 5 different understandings you have to apply them to this problem. And I laugh because I'm like, oh shit, if I have to know 5 different ideas, now you're going to need to know that, but you don't have that basic understanding because you don't go to class, you have no notes, and you don't practice. So it's one of those things where it brings a smile to my face because I realize the amount of work and commitment you have to give something to learn it and understand it and be able to explain it. And so the kids sitting there dying because they don't go to class, or the teacher sent them right to 208 for support, when it's like, it doesn't make sense. But sometimes I've learned that in what I do, things don't make sense a lot of the time. So so let me get to my favorite part of this. There's a student on my caseload in grade 12 taking a math class, struggling big time. He has a first period spare. So what happens? Well, you've got a first period spare in Chidiacs in room 208, period 1. So we're going to assign you to go to period 1 in the mornings, and you can do your math with Chidiac. So the first thing that happens is my heart ends up in my throat, because I'm like, oh shit. He's doing grade 12 math. He's struggling, and the universe sees it fit that he end up working with me in the room period 1 to get support for math. And I'm not like it, math is not my thing. But I say to the kid, hey, we'll figure it out. I will walk by your side. I took grade 12 math, but I don't know if it's different or the same. It's probably 100% different. But you come in, you show me the problems, and we will work through trying to do the math. Right? And that's period 1. But at lunchtime, there's math support. There's math support after school on Mondays and Wednesdays. Like, these are things that, like, you can do these things on your own outside of me to try to learn math, and you go to class. Well, the kid he came a couple of times, and I tell you, I was gassed at the end of those periods, because I was like learning how to do grade 12 math, because nobody prepped me for it. It's just like, hey, today this is what we're working on. These are the practice questions. Here are my notes. Okay, let's work through this. And he just stopped coming. And whenever I'd see him, because he'd check in with me later on in the day, most days, I'm like, how come you don't come to period 1? He goes, well, it's my spare. I don't want to be in room 208. So, well, how are you dealing with your math? Well, I'm asking people, and my friends are helping me at lunch. And I'm like, are you going to get help from a real math teacher? And he's like, no, because I want to be with my friends at lunch. Like, why don't your friends go with you? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Just tell me you don't want to. Like, you don't need to lie to me. Just say, I don't want to go. And then I'm like, okay, there may be some negative consequences that come with that, because how are you supposed to do this math if it's causing so much difficulty? You said a lot. And there's a lot I can say about what you said that I'm not going to. I wish processes were easier, but they're not. And I just do my best with what's in front of me at the time. But I'm not a math person. It doesn't mean I can't learn it. It just means I can't learn it in 2 minutes when you land in front of me and you haven't been to class in a month. And then when I've said to kids, you need to go back to class, they're like, I'm not going back. I'll just skip. Like, well, I don't understand what your purpose is. Do you want to pass this class? And then kids, they struggle. They struggle with me when I say to them, I don't know what you want. Are you just here because somebody told you to come here? Or would you prefer to be in here because you know that I can't help you and I'm not going to bother you about it? Like, what are you doing here? They usually tell me with their behavior what they want, what they don't want.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, I don't like that teacher. I'm not going there. Have you talked to your guidance counselor, your administrator about this? They don't want to hear that either, because that means work on their end. That means accountability for them. And I just say to them, you're at the end of your road with me. This is what I can do for you now. And I'm not your monitor. So maybe you should talk to your monitor more in depth about this. Oh, I don't want it. I'm not doing that. Okay. So you're okay with possibly ending this semester, failing this course? Well, no, I want to pass the course. But you don't want to go to class. You don't like your teacher. You're not going to talk to your monitor. You don't want to talk to your VP or your guidance counselor. You just want to sit with me and I'm your target for the next 45 minutes. And the answer is yes without them saying yes. So so what does that do? It it grinds me down
Mhm.
in a way that then I find what is what do I do in this situation, reminding myself that I'm the adult in the room. I'm the one who's supposed to be level-headed. I'm the one that shouldn't be entering the power struggle with kids. So what do? I report to their people. I report to their people. Clough came in today. Clough's been in here all week for math. He doesn't go to class. He just comes here. His teacher's not signed him in. I've taken care of attendance because if, after a week, someone's like, this kid's been absent all week, where is he? And oh, he was with Chidiac room 208, but Chidiac didn't tell anybody he was there. But then the flip message of that is, why are you signing him in? Like, why are you telling attendance he's present if he's supposed to be over there? Well, because if I don't do that, you're going to wonder why I didn't do that. And now because I did do that, now you're going to tell me, why are you doing that? You shouldn't be doing that. So in my brain, there's a lot of these mixed messages. So I just informed the kids team. This is what I'm seeing. This is what's happening. I'm informing you because he's not on my caseload. So I'm letting the caseload people know what's happening. And even kids on my caseload, I'll be like, okay, I need to take more direct action. So then I do my best to try to make it so that it is known that I'm trying to support someone. But I found that certain people in this circle of influential people don't want to hear it. Or they take it in, but they don't do anything with it. But I'm the one that's in the room with an upset kid, with a kid who doesn't go to class. So what do I do? Right? This is what has ground me down to the point where I am looking forward to my summer break. I'm looking forward to a reset.
Good wraparound. Good
Right?
wraparound. That's
I
yeah.
am, and I've
Yeah,
told
yeah,
you
yeah.
this. I am one of those people right now
Yep.
that is ready to walk away from the workplace for the summer, because I find myself every day in the same little like rat race and trying to exit the velocity that I'm in. How do I go on a tangent and step out of that circle? Because I just I do my best to try to support, and I have found lately kids are really mad. They appear uncooperative. They're not complying with a lot of the things that we expect them to comply with. Though, if you want to, a positive is at least they have a space where they can go to. Like, so at the very least, at least they're coming to my room, whether it's because Chidiac's not going to get in my face, or there's nowhere else for me to go and I can sit in there on my phone. At least they're safe for the time that they're in the room. They're not, I've talked to you about this, they're not crossing the street to go to Tim Hortons where they could get into a fight or get hit by a car, or I don't know, chances are they're not going to get hit by a car or get into a fight when they're in the room with me. The probability is still there, but it's low. Right? I'm finding myself reflecting on this these days and just feeling like, I don't know, helpless isn't the right word. I just don't feel like I'm supporting them in a positive way. So others might look at it and say different, but I don't know, dude. Gary says some things here. Gary said, I find that when roles intersect, it requires greater collaboration. But I find sometimes we struggle to consistently engage or make space for collaboration. That is very true. I think the days go by quick, and we all have different roles and responsibilities, and sometimes the role and the responsibility does not it's not able to accommodate the people that need access when they need access. Um, and Gary said he enjoyed when he was able to work with a teacher to coordinate their efforts to support a student, where students sees classroom and resources room as similarly supportive, reducing running away from class. Again, there's a lot I can say, just not here, because this isn't the time or place for me to say those things. But I'm happy to have support. I got people like you who you're a critical. I consider you a critical colleague, critical friend. You will push back on my thinking. You will offer solutions, and you will listen, but you will also push back. You will also provide ideas that might not sit well with me at first, but you do it anyway because you know we can do that in our relationship. I value relationships like that. That's important. I've been leaning on that a lot. And even some of my non-teacher friends, I've said to them, hey, look, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm dealing with. So when you complain that your kid's school isn't doing enough, do you know like about the supports at your kid's school? Do you know that there's a team of people that their job is to help get your kid back on track when they're off track? Because they land on our radar. They land on my radar 3 times a week, every week, all year long. And we talk about who's going to do what, how we're going to do it, what the student's role is, how to try to engage the student in the process. And some of my friends are dumbfounded. They're like, you do that? I'm like, yeah. What happens when it doesn't work? Well, then I bring it back to the team. We talk about who needs to pick this up or how it needs to be picked up. Does it get picked up? You know, they're baffled. They're like, well, I don't know how you do your job. I'm like, I just day by day, you build with experience and time, you build capacity, you build relationships. But hey, let me, as I've been blabbing here, let me tell you that about this relationship business. I'm tired of people questioning whether I'm building relationships with kids or that I need to lean on a relationship with a kid. I'm building relationships. I have lots of relationships, but sometimes the kids don't care about the relationship. They're going to still tell you to F off. They're still going to be defiant. They're still not going to jump in and participate in the process that is meant to get them back on track. And right now, I feel like I have to contain myself to not lose it if someone says to me, well, have you gotten to know them? That I just feel like that's the wrong thing to be talking to me about right now, because I don't go into situations looking to poke people. I go into situations looking to support, but to be honest as well, like to say to a kid, hey, you've been on your phone for most of this period today. What's going to change tomorrow? Because you're not getting any work done. And this is a space where it's expected that you will do some work. And then they push back. And it's like, whoa, take it easy, man. I'm telling you, you wasted today. And I kind of let you waste it. We can't do this every day though. So I would like to come to an agreement. And then they step over lines that then I take to administration. So I don't need to hear, well, have you gotten to know them? Did you listen to anything I just told you about how this played out? They didn't walk in. I didn't start poking them the minute they walked in. I got to know them a little bit. And what I got to know, I didn't like. And so I told them that. And now they're hot and bothered and they want justice. And I kind of want a little bit of justice too. I'd like some answers. How do we move forward? What do we do here? You know, what do we do here? So that's where I'm sitting right now. That's where I'm sitting. And I respect my colleagues and I respect my administrators. But when I'm tapped out, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in hearing have you tried to get to know this person, because I have, and I've given grace first. And then when Royal Day want you to give grace for the seventh time in a row, well, I feel a little bit morally defeated, mentally tired, cognitively tapped out, not interested in being told to go F myself because I'm saying, hey, we should probably look at some of this stuff that you need to do to demonstrate that you're learning something in your class. Or you're here for the 50th time when I've told you you really need to go check in with your teacher first so that they know where you are. Because I can't be saving the day every day, because then you're not doing anything. You're not learning anything. You're not accountable for anything. You're not responsible for anything. But the minute it hits the fan, everybody's looking at me like, yo, you knew this was happening. You didn't do anything about it. I, you gotta laugh, right? I like to laugh.
I don't worry as much. Like that whole the relationships thing, I get it. Um I think there's a funny little moment there where, and I've gotten close to this, where I've been asked a similar question and I flat out say it's not about that. It's not about that. It actually is not about relationship building or lack of relationship, especially when I have case history. And what I know about case history is that there are things that have not been done so far, and individuals along the path have had relationship, but they still haven't done certain things so far. And I usually do the work to find out what those things are. So it's kind of like, if we start with the assumption that in every case, student success is grounded in relationships, I would argue that's only one of the criteria. Because to expect someone, and this comes back to that quote that I shared with you, to expect, like, you can't expect good behavior from a bear just because you're kind to them, and somehow you respect the animal. You operate in this way because you know that it's good for you. That's how we kind of work it. We'll extend it and say we operate in good ways because we know it's good for other people. But I think really, if you parse it down, it's good for us if we operate in kindness and compassion. There's an invisible kind of like expansion that happens in us if we can truly honestly exist in the space. It's calming, it's courageous, it's compassionate. And the hope is that kind of emanates, and some individuals will respond in kind. I've had equal measure of individuals that don't respond in kind to relationship. They are not in a place where the relationship, which is the bridge, works. They recognize that I'm being kind, but they're not having it. They recognize that I'm trying to do things to connect, but they're not having it. My first experience with this was when back, so long ago. And I didn't know it was my first experience with this, but I was operating in the space of being kind to bears. And I only by complete happenstance did not get punched in the face. And I think I haven't told the story in a long time, but it's way back in the day. I was working kind of in a special education program at my first school. And I was standing at the door saying goodbye to people, checking in with people as they went. And as I was checking into somebody on my left, one of my students that had just left class came out and squared off, but I wasn't looking at them. And they threw a punch. And it hit the locker just where my head was a few seconds ago. It was completely, if you were to watch it on, like if the game tape, you would just see that it was just, I happened to turn to look to someone over here and the punch came over here. The kid threw it just at the same time. All that I had offered during that period was relational kindness kind of support. And I forget what the topic was. I think I was helping the kid catch up on some work. And for whatever reason, that was the response that they wanted to sort of dole out to me. I found out afterwards that I reminded them of somebody in their world that wasn't very kind. So in the case that someone had dared to ask about the relationship, now looking back, it's a glaring example and it's an outlier. I get it. This isn't how every kid responds. But in truth, this kid did have relationships with other teachers. It just so happened that the version that I was offering wouldn't have mattered. And had I been in a position to defend what I had done relative to what I had just experienced, my head would have exploded. I would have like I have no way to start. I don't even know how to talk about this. I would have been the teacher with the hands in there saying, I don't know. All I did was offer to help the kid with some work. So I know that that's not what my experience is built on. I've sort of learned to sort of do things in different ways. And in truth, I was in my first 5 years of teaching. My toolkit wasn't as refined or as diverse in the least as it is now. But I also have come to understand that because I operate in a good way, it is a falsehood to expect that others will operate in the exact same way. And it can actually make you really blind to some of the tactical and technical steps that we need to start doing in education to sometimes sidestep this conversation around, well, what's the relationship like? And instead lean on data and case management information from before. Because one of the things that's really easy to do, because it's, as we say, human work and it's not bound to budget lines, is to suggest somehow that the adult in the room could do a little bit more with a little bit less and build a better relationship with the kid. That is a super simple way to skirt around. No, we need to bring in this specialist. We need to bring in this specialist. We need more funds to do this thing. It's an easy way to bury the budget and just drown it. So that's been my experience with those types of conversations, that the idea that somehow a relationship will trade off for good medication and psychotherapy. This doesn't make me cynical at all. But I tend to be the one at sometimes these student success meetings that if anybody gets too deep in the emotional side of it, I said, I think we need to pause this because we're getting bogged down in relationship and compassion. We have to be able to find a way to talk about technical elements of this without people around the table feeling guilty for pivoting to that. So I suggest we kind of close out this thinking, and we're going to need to have a second meeting where we can come at this in a little bit more of a clinical manner. If we are case managers, which is sometimes a way better way to talk about a student success meeting, because when we talk about student success, it doesn't often let us look backwards into our actual tactics. It's way too forward-facing. So, sure, that's where my frustration gets with talking about relationships, because it puts the burden on individuals that have already given their best effort to somehow give 105% more. And it sometimes obscures the true sort of like seed point or baseline of behavior that at that table we're not equipped to do. You tell a fifth-year teacher, if you would have told me back in my fifth year that the problem was that I needed to work a little bit harder, better, faster, stronger at building a relationship with this kid, let's call him Jimmy, to question my relationship with Jimmy, I probably would have accepted that somehow I did something wrong. And there was something wrong with me. I made a mistake. And I'd probably be a little bit, despite the fact the kid took a swing at me, I would be thinking, is my job in jeopardy right now? Because somehow something I did or didn't do incited this violent response, which in fact I fundamentally understand now had nothing to do with me. So there's danger in sort of reinforcing that relationship. I think there's a professional injustice done when that's the lead without actually pulling out evidence, ISTM data, other strategies that have been used in the past, family relationships, previous successes, different credits. Like there's just so many other ways that we can start before we're like, how's your relationship with this kid? So
I appreciate that, and it doesn't always come like that. Like it doesn't always come, what's your relationship with this kid? It's like a softer entry into it. Like,
well, because the person saying that to you doesn't want to be accused of not doing something good for the relationship. This is the game. This is the game. Sometimes we can't even speak directly to each other because we're too swept up in the relationship. I've had administrators talk to me and I'm sort of like, what is going on here? What is going, like, this feels way too touchy feely. Like somehow, like, am I presenting that I'm insulted or hurt? You're over caring. And then they get to the thing they want to say. I'm like, oh, that was the preamble because the reality was just coming. That was the next turd down the intestine. Right. So but you get what I'm saying, right?
yeah.
The sort of like the turd comes with the fart. So I was like, I just and that time spent in that moment, I'm walking away. I'm like, man, that was not a good way to come at this. We could have saved 10 minutes and just gotten right to the point. How am I doing? How are things going? How's my day? How's the end of the year for you? Oh, by the way, this parent called and said this kid hates you. I'm like, what? Why don't you just lead with that? I don't want to talk about my weekend in the same context of a kid, somehow not like, what's the point? But we get caught in this. I think we get caught in the relationship trap. It can be part of the conversation. I don't think it should be the lead. I say things like that and it reaffirms just the fact I'm never going to be an administrator. Like
When you and I talk about this stuff, I feel the same as you. I'm like,
yeah.
F that. I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. But this whole thing reminds me of a recent situation where I caught a student cheating.
Yep.
And then I called them on it. And then they pushed back on me when I was like, you have to get rid of your phone. So it's like, put your phone over here. No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do this. And they flip it over right beside them. I'm like, well, that's not good enough. The phone has to go away. You can put it wherever you want. It just can't be right there beside you after I've seen you use it to work on your test. And then there's the pushback again. And then it's like, okay, just like, I understand you're not going to separate yourself from your phone. I'm going to let your teacher know of this situation and that you're not separating yourself from the phone. So it's like, am I going to go hog wild and call the
No.
office and demand an administrator to come and see me? No. Am I going to fight with the student? No. So I'm going to let the student know what I'm doing now, that they're not complying with something that I believe is reasonable in the situation. And I'm going to go back and keep helping kids with their stuff. And I'm going to let their teacher know. Well, this student got up and left without saying anything, like without saying, I'm going back to class, or they just left. So then I sent the emails. And then I saw the kid 2 days later in the hall. And we were walking past each other, and I said, hey, hello, good morning. And they nodded. They acknowledged me. This student has a reputation for being difficult. So I'm like, hey, today's Wednesday. I'm saying hello to you, as I say to most kids in the hall. And I said to the student, as they were walking past me, I hope you're having a better day today. And they were like, they made these faces. They made bear faces, like they were ready to eat me in the woods, right?
Yep.
And I just kept walking. Like, that's where I dealt with a situation in the room. That situation's over now. I'm not going to harp on it, milk it, whatever. I did what I was supposed to do with it. And then I saw them and they acknowledged my existence. And I just hope that they were having a better day today, because they didn't seem to be having one the other day when we had our interaction, right? So it's like, but it's stuff like that. It's stuff like that that it's like, I wonder, well, what are you upset for? You know you're not supposed to be on the phone while you write your test, or else you wouldn't have been bothered. You would have just been like all California, like, it's all good, Mr. C. Of course I'm going to use my phone. I don't know any of these answers, but I can Google them or AI them, right? It wasn't like that. It was like, no, whatever. I'm not putting my phone away. It's not going over there. Okay. I'm not, okay, that's fine. I'm not gonna rip it out of your hands. I'm not gonna argue with you. I'm not gonna call the office and demand an administrator come up for this. I'll just let your teacher know you're cheating, and then they can do whatever they want with it. I got 7 other kids that actually want to do something today and learn, so I'm gonna support them. And I'm gonna let you keep if you want, and I'll keep an eye on the student. If they Here's what I was gonna do. Even if they didn't leave the room, I was going to continuously be looking over to monitor the situation. Is the phone still flipped over? Is the phone still where they put it? Are they progressing with, and it was a digital test, so I can see their screen. Are they on the screen? Like, of course, I'm going to observe and still support. I wish it would have just ended with, I'm flipping my phone over and it's going to stay right here. And they keep writing, because at that point I was finished. I wasn't going to push the matter. They said that they weren't going to move their phone away from them. And they had no pockets, right? They were out of uniform. So, like, they were looking for a way out of the room and they found it.
Yeah.
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 They didn't want to be there. This student has been in the room a few times. They never want to be in the room. I'm surprised they even complied and showed up. Really, I am, because that's not their style. So just like, yeah, when you deal, like, I just don't, I can see the recipe for disaster for educators who feel like they are responsible for the student. They are there to teach, they are there to support a kid and help them, and the kid is pushing back for whatever reason. That's frustrating. And I can see how, if you got 30 kids in a room and you're trying to teach a subject matter and you're trying to observe and assess, and they keep doing that to you, it grinds you down. We're all humans, and then we need support. We don't know what to do. So some teachers just say, get them out of my class, they're never coming back again. So then you got to work through that. And then so I get it when a kid's in the room and I call the teacher to say, what are they working on? And teacher's like, I don't care what they're working on, just they're not coming back here. And I'm like, well, okay, it doesn't work that way. Like, if they're finished in here and I send them back, then I'll call you and tell you they're going back. And the teacher's like, they're not coming back here. And I'm like, I'm not going to fight with you either, right? You're the adult. I'm not going there. I'm just letting you know what I'm going to do. And just because you don't want them back doesn't mean I'm not sending them back. It depends. It's all dependent on the situation. But I have to remember that I'm the adult. There's more expected of me as the adult. My principal sent out a great email recently reminding the staff that this is a tenuous time for some kids. It's high stress, and some of them don't work with that as well as others do. And he actually said in his email, like, you're the adult in the room. Like, self-regulate and remember your role. And I felt the email was great. It was done. I felt it was done in I didn't feel disrespected or whatever. I'm just like, okay, this is a good reminder. This is a good reminder that I don't need to fight with a 15-year-old. They'll make their decision, and then I will make my decision, and we'll go from there. There's no reason to get into a huge battle. And I'm proud of myself because a few times in the last week or two, I've felt the emotion that comes with being disrespected. Like, the heart's pumping, I'm feeling hot, and I'm like, oh, this is a good sign that this isn't going to lead me to a good place. and I'm at work, and I don't want to fight, because that's what it feels like. It's fight or flight. And it's like, I got to find the middle ground. I can't fly away because I'm the responsible adult in the room, and I can't fight. So I will make clear, as clear as I can, my instructions and the consequences of not following those instructions, and then see what comes next. Yeah, it's funny, eh? Because I'm like middle life, and I'm telling you, I'm proud of myself because I know where I may have gone 10 years ago. And 10 years fast forward, it's like, it's good that I'm not going there.
Mhm.
At the end of the world, I still get to come home to my family. I still have a job. I feel sometimes bad for these kids because their situation's not ideal, right? And I talk to my two kids about it. Like, I say to my high school son, hey, I know what you're telling me. I know that situation. I deal with that daily. Just remember who your parents are, what you have, not to take for granted. Just keep doing your thing, and your parents are here to support you. I don't know if everybody has that. I don't know. So, yeah, it's been
Hey,
an interesting couple of weeks.
before we book you out, have and if Gary's still here, Gary's snoozing. Gary's gone to get a bagel or something. He's like, these Saturday guys with all this time on their hands to think so philosophically. Um, have you encountered, walked through, been by? Same question for you, Gary, about what the accountability or the assessment still here. The accountability systems will look like next year in your school system as far as attributing marks for attendance and participation. Has anybody started to work that out?
I know that when it first came out, teachers were kind of buzzing about it, and there were some kids who were aware of it, who were sharing their opinions with me about it.
Mhm.
But no, like, in terms of system, I don't know. I've not, nothing's come my way from my administrators about that. And I don't know, Gary, I don't know what Gary wants to say, but as far as, like, from at my level, I've not heard a thing. What about you?
No, and I'm really at a loss as to, like, I don't have a starting point. I haven't started to rabbit hole it at all, like how other jurisdictions have done it. It feels, I mean, from the jump, it feels like it's a very pragmatic, overly pragmatic approach for student success and accountability. I don't disagree with attendance as being a primary driver of success. One of the it is, and attendance in the class where the actual, you know, I I am only like slightly I'm only slightly I'm more cringe than not cringe about the, well, at least they're in the school or at least they're in the classroom mindset for student success. And you had said as far as the kid being in 208, at least they're here, that they're kind of more safe here than otherwise. I have become more and more falling on the side of, well, now what? They can't just be here. So, but that's, I'm not going to rewind our conversation, but that was, I remember when you had mentioned that, I'm like, yeah, I'm not there anymore. I'm not there anymore. So, but I do think I think this bears conversation, because like many other things that we've been told to do, and people become either overly precious or they put up the roadblocks straight away, this is something that ultimately we're going to have to figure out. And I can only imagine. I'm looking at the last 2 day agenda for our school year, and I can see from the agenda, admin is not looking to open up any new learning at the end of the year. They very much are affirming this. Everybody's tired. Everyone's had a lot of work, and somehow we're entitled to not do anything at the end of the year because of how we've lived our school year. there are some topics that will not be, we open the doors and start immediately. There is no practice rounds in September. There's no like, let's just figure things out. So in a lot of ways, June has to be your first staff meeting of the year. You have to sort of lock things down and set things up. So when people, either over the summer, which I know we don't mandate for, or in that first week of school, they're not providing any excuses backwards that they didn't know, we weren't sure, we weren't, you know what I mean? And I get it, some of this stuff is dependent on the government, but it feels like this is a topic that schools should have their answers ready, so that when we're rolling in September, we're not piecemealing this together. And this is kind of new, right? It's participation marks. And I've never had that a part of my assessment world, first classes. There was no such thing as specifically participation marks and attendance marks. I haven't had that. I don't know if that was ever a part of your world. I have heard of it kind of mythically mentioned before, that, you know, teachers used to be able to give marks for attendance. I don't have any firsthand experience in that. So it would behoove us. And unfortunately, this is something that often happens because June staff meetings become a wash. So the June 1st staff meeting, I get it. You address how student success is going to work to the end, how spec ed's going to work to the end, how you're the marks submitting the exam stuff, all that kind of stuff. Technically, that should be at the May staff meeting. So because June is a little bit late to start getting people set up that way. But definitely, you know, and I mean the top of June staff meeting. But then in the last couple of days, you know, we have PA days where we're going to have a couple PA days at the end, and all it is professionally managed time. I feel like that's a waste for me. What Gary's saying here, I feel like we're still thinking about the headlines, but not much in way details. Yeah, sure. But he's been saying it. Calandra's saying it's coming. And also having every course having a formal exam. I put that to my department yesterday, spec ed. Okay, so what does a formal exam in the exam schedule look like for spec ed? And people were just like, who's the asshole that wants to talk about this now? I'm like, well, hey, it's been mentioned now for a couple months. It's not leaving the table, right? So yeah, I feel like there's a missed opportunity. There's a missed opportunity to sort of get some of that thinking in motion that doesn't harm us over the summer, but definitely primes us for what we're stepping into in September. But schools have consistently done this for my whole experience. They don't close up well. They close up according to marks, but they don't close up according to thinking, strategy, or kind of like pedagogical philosophy. Like we just don't close that stuff up well. And I find that's the stuff that bugs me over the summer. I'm like, damn, I wish we would have had a formal conversation around this. In the same, it's like me sitting in my empty room at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year, right? That's the on-ramp to what could possibly happen. Well, we know some of the things that are going to possibly happen, and I haven't been able to muster or find any conversations about this. So on we go. On we go.
And on we go is a great way to move out of this podcast today.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
This was Gary. Thanks for checking us out live. Anybody else who was watching or is watching, thanks for checking us out.
Do you want to sing the theme song, or do you want me to?
There's a theme song? Happy Father's Day.
Ah, yeah, same to you, bro. Same to you. And to Gary. And to Gary. Everyone else out there.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
This was, well, I think summer school's coming up.
It is. Hey, how do you say Happy Father's Day in Lebanese?
Don't know.
Okay.
It's not there.
Me neither.
I'll let you know when I figure it out.
Me
neither. Sure. That's a good one. Do you know how to say it in Polish?
No. But that, if I would say, it would have. Dziadek is like grandfather. So Dziadek Nachikoha. I don't know. I would my love grandfather. I don't know. I can string some words together, but I don't have a memory of what that would be. My dad was the Irish side, so I didn't technically have a Polish dad. And to my dad, I would have just said Happy Father's Day.
Gotcha.
Straight up English. Straight up English. Straight up
Same
English.
here. Straight up English.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, this was season 9, episode 36, number 384 of the Decoder Podcast. Have a good one.
You too, brother.